All right, now we're going to talk about how do we maybe send 5 to 10,000 or maybe even more emails per day to our contact list. So now we're starting to get into some really sort of technically complicated facets of email send. At this point, you're going to need the first thing you're going to need is to purchase a dedicated IP. And even if you don't want to do this and you're like, hey, my delivery is great, my metrics are looking good on my send from my pooled shared IP pool, most of the providers are going to kick you off at some point. They all have different limits, but let's say it's maybe 5,000 emails per day. So if you're going to send more than that, you're going to need to get a plan in place to send from your own dedicated IP. The good thing is Mailgun and SendGrid and all the major providers make this pretty easy. You just come in here, you look at IPs, and you just click Manage IP, and you purchase essentially a dedicated IP. It's not that expensive. It's going to cost you probably around $20 to $40 a month per IP. That said, managing it and keeping it healthy is the expensive part. So you're essentially on your own at this point. We're giving you've gone from Google's managing my IP. It's great. It's so easy. They're doing everything for me, and all of my senders accept it, to I'm in a shared pool. Mailgun's kind of managing it. There's other senders using this. I'm not thinking too much about it, too. They're pretty much just giving you an IP address that is capable of sending mail. When you first get this IP address is going to have zero reputation. So if you go out and you just start trying to send between 5 to 10,000 emails from this IP, they're all going to land in spam. They're all going to get blocked. If you send a whole bunch immediately, you're going to end up on a ton of blacklists that we talked about previously, and you're going to be in a really bad shape. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and warm this email up. And there's a couple of different things you want to think about here. One is just consistently warming up, and there's a bunch of tools out there. There's like probably 50 different tools out there that'll help you do this in an automated fashion. One that I like is called Warmbox. So we'll look at this quickly. This is one that we're actively using at Emporia. What it's going to do is it's going to receive and send mails through your IP to your inbox, using this server, this dedicated IP. It's going to open those mails that are coming from you. If they're in spam, it's going to mark them as not spam, move them back into the inbox, interact with the message, and send you really good human-driven content back. Oh. All right, we'll cut that out. It's going to send you really good human-driven content back. And what's great about that, and that's a really big thing to think about when picking a warm-up tool, is are they generating like real seeming content? You can actually look in your inbox and see some of the content that's coming through. If it doesn't seem legitimate, it's going to be less useful. It's still useful. It's still traffic coming inbound, but looking at the content that they're seeing you, I think, is the real differentiator between these tools. Also, some of them will show you some signal here. I wouldn't fully rely on this, but things like, here we're sending 50-something emails a day from this subdomain. It'll show you which ones are landing in spam. Hopefully this rate's decreasing over time. Again, I wouldn't fully rely on this, and the volume isn't super huge, and we don't totally know what their demarc settings are, et cetera, et cetera. So wouldn't fully rely on it, but a useful metric nonetheless. Another thing to keep in mind here is once you've got that IP warmed up, most of these warm-up tools will warm up your IP to maybe at most 200, 300 emails per day. That's not sufficient. It's helpful, and you should let it sit there in that warm-up period for maybe a month and a half, 2 months before you even touch it. I'd say a month is the minimum, but if you can wait longer, that's great. Just interacting with the warm-up service. But once you do that, I wouldn't recommend just immediately jumping to 10,000 or something emails per day. At that point, I would start at 3,000 emails. And follow a pretty tight little warm-up schedule. So if you look up something like, I think Sendinblue, we'll look that up right now, has a nice little warm-up schedule. We check this out on warming up your dedicated IP, just increasing this each day. So you're just taking nice linear jumps. You don't want to have a spiky workload. Anything that's spiky is suspicious. I think here they recommend an increase of 15% per day. So if you're looking to get to 10,000 emails in a day, that's taking you 10 days. A question that, I've gotten a lot, and that is kind of still a little bit of a, I'll say, open question for me even, is should you be sending these emails? I'm warming up. Do I send them on the weekend? My answer and what we followed at Emporia is no. I think that looks like irregular traffic. I think it's natural to have traffic dips on the weekend. So if you stop that warm up on the weekend, I think that's fine, and just resume at your kind of linear rate on Monday. The best thing to keep in mind here is, if I am the spam filter creator at one of these inbox providers, like, what am I thinking of, in building these sort of spam protection models? And, not sending on the weekend to me is looking like normal traffic. So you want to look like normal traffic. You want to look like you're growing at a normal rate. So do things that seem normal, right? That's always a good rule of thumb when thinking about not landing in spam. And yeah, once you've got this, dedicated IP warmed up and you're sending from a single domain successfully, really the next best thing to think about is, how do I, decrease my risk? What happens if this domain, and it's a critical maybe marketing automation, sort of pipeline for me? What's the risk to my business if it goes down? If it's low, then maybe you're fine, and that's an accepted risk, and you're done. You're in a good spot. If it's high, you're going to want to start to think about building in redundancy. So that's going to mean acquiring more dedicated IPs, warming them up, sending from multiple subdomains. At Emporia, something we think about to send, over upwards of 1 million emails a month is, we try to send, and we'd like to at least get to a place where we're sending from 10 to 15 different subdomains and 10 to 15 different dedicated IPs. That's what we have that's the level of risk we see in losing one of these IPs. We want to have that redundancy built in, and be able to send from a whole bunch of different subdomains and IPs. And then if you're looking to send from more than 10,000 or to more than 10,000 contacts per day, maybe you want to send to, millions a month or something like that. You got a really sophisticated workload. Again, follow some of these best practices that we're seeing here from these warm-up schedules. Increase your workload linearly, and with like predictable increases. You want to avoid those spiky patterns. Find metrics that matter to you and to your business, conversion metrics that you trust. Again, open rates and click-through rates are important, but they're not the end-all be-all. Delivery rates are important. You're going to want to make sure that you're keeping those probably above 98%.